order. This is the October 4th, 2022 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals. Present here today are Al Morrison, John Bennett, Bill Goodwin, and Allison Grass, and Jeff Tibbles, your chair. Present from the planning staff are Lee Batchelder, Penny Ashby, and Omar Muhammad. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, usually the Board of Zoning Appeals treats the matter as being uncontested, and we pass it as a matter of course. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals, zoning, has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the meeting, present at the hearing, and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance is passed. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I'm required by our ordinance to let you know that if you're going to speak tonight, you need to take an oath that you're going to tell the truth. So if you plan to speak, please raise your right hand, and I'm going to ask, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You signify by saying, I do. Thank you. First order of business, if you are here for the agenda item B1, which are new applications, 411 Meeting Street, Elliotsboro, Canberra. The Bennett Meeting Street LLC request. That item has been deferred. It will not be heard this evening. So if you're here in support or in opposition to the application for 411 Meeting Street, you may be excused because that's not going to be heard this evening. Following the agenda, item A on the agenda, review of minutes and deferred applications from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one, review of the minutes of the September 20th, 2022 board meeting. Do you have a copy of those minutes from staff? We have 4 members who were here and can vote on approval of those minutes. So, do I hear a motion? Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Second, Mr. Morrison seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes 4-0. The minutes are approved. Ms. Grass abstained because she was not present. last meeting. Because item B1 is deferred, that means the next item on our agenda is B2. B2 is 18 Sheridan Road in South Windermere. Mr. Dennett is recused from this particular agenda item. Thank you, sir. South Windermere, TMS number 42105000148, zoned SR1. Request variance from section 54-301 to allow a one-story screen porch addition with a 6-foot west side setback. 9 feet are required. The owner is Francie Doherty. The applicant is Ben Dameyer, Classic Remodeling. Mr. Batchel.
This is a residence in the South Windermere neighborhood, West Ashley. This is the map showing the location of the property on Sheridan Road, and zoning map showing that it's zoned SR1. And you can see from this map pretty clearly the house is sort of a square and pretty much occupies all of the buildable area of the lot. And so there's really not many good places to put the screen porch. They also have a large tree that you see in this photograph. And their application, their explanation, more information from them. This is a view looking from Sheridan Road down the driveway. And actually what they're proposing to do is place the screen porch on the side, the rear corner to the side of the house. So here's the survey showing the property and the house on it. This is the location of this proposed screen porch right here. And let me turn my cursor on. Okay, so you see on here, this is the location of the proposed screen porch. And with that screen porch being in that location, there's a small encroachment into the side yard setback. It's a 3-foot encroachment into that 9-foot side setback requirement. And you see the views of what that would look like once it's constructed.
Sorry, is the top view, well, that's from Sheridan Street?
Yes, this is from Sheridan. This would be looking from the neighbor next door and from the back corner of the property, bottom. And elevation views of that porch. So the front is on the top. And then this image highlights the portion of the porch that would encroach into the side setback area. And they contacted neighbors on both sides of the property. So the neighbor at 16 Sheridan Road has indicated with this letter that they support this, the approval for this project, and the neighbor on the other side at 20 Sheridan Road also indicates that they support this as well. And I believe it's the neighbor at 20 that is the most impacted neighbor. So that completes the presentation. My recommendation is for approval. It's a small encroachment, and given the constraints on the property, I think this is a reasonable request.
Thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here who intends to speak in opposition to the application for 18 Sheridan Road? All right, I see no one in opposition to the application. Mr. Batchelder, we haven't received any written comments who are people who are opposed to the application, have we?
No, we have not.
Okay. All right. Is the owner or applicant here?
Applicant.
All right. Mr. Dameyer, is there anything you'd like to tell the board?
Sure. Just wanted to point out that there was a 7-foot fence along that side property line, and I omitted it from the 2 lower renderings there, just so you can see the porch a little better. But you can see it in the upper one. that helped conceal the porch from both the neighbor in the side and the rear. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else here to speak in support of the application, 18 Sheridan? Anybody have any questions for the city or for the applicant? Hearing no questions, do I hear a motion? All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve.
Second.
All right, Mr. Goodwin seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes 4-0. The variance for 18 Sheridan Road in South Windermere is granted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda this evening is B3, 32 Charlotte Street, as of Ragsboro, TMS number 459-1301-100, zone DR1F, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a vertical extension, second floor laundry room of a non-conforming building footprint with a 1.1 foot east side setback, 3 feet of required. The owner applicant is Ben Gramley. Mr. Batchelder.
This is a residence in Ragsboro, and you can see on this map, the property is a very large property. It contains a historic home that is located along the east side of the property, and this map, zoning map, does a pretty good job of showing that location of that house on the lot here. Footprint is actually continuous, so this building here connects to the house in the front. But what is proposed is a small infill on the second floor between those two buildings. So here's the overall site plan. House is right here, main house is right here, and then these are dependencies in the back. They're connected right now on the first floor, but above that, there's no building connection between the two buildings. So this small area that I've highlighted right here, and my cursor practically covers, is the area where they would like to build the vertical addition over that one-story connection. And by doing that, that requires your approval as a vertical extension of the non-conforming building footprint. It's not conforming because, like most single houses, it's situated along a side property line and doesn't meet the required 3-foot side setback on that side. So more drawings. So this is a floor plan that illustrates what's there right now. So bottom is the ground level or at grade level, and then the next floor plan is the main level or the first floor of the house, and you see the connection right here. So it's right in this area that they would like to build the second floor addition over that one-story section of the house. And so these are just more details of what that would be. And this is the plan. This is the main floor level. This is the plan that shows the laundry room addition right here. So again, it's just a very slight extension or encroachment into that side setback. The test for the board with this special exception is the light and air impacts on the adjoining neighbor. And the house obviously has a substantial impact right now, and that's typical of most single houses on the peninsula and the way they relate to their neighbors. And, these elevations, let's see, so this is the side from the neighbor where we have the 0 setback, the 0-foot setback off that east side property line. And this is the addition right here that they'd like to build in that area. And this is a letter from the neighbor, the property owner next door at 30 Charlotte Street. And Ms. Scott indicates that she is aware of the plans and that they support the proposal to add this room within that second floor area of the building. So I think, the minimal size of this infill addition on that side of the house, and the fact that the neighbor has indicated their support for the proposal indicates to me that they meet the special exception requirements. So my recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, Lee. Is there anyone here to oppose the application for 32 Charlotte Street? All right, is the other applicant here? Yes, sir. Is there anything you'd like to tell the board?
No, sir. I think Mr. Batchelder said all we need to say.
Okay, could you identify yourself?
I'm Ben Gramlin.
Thank you.
32 Charlotte Street.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just one question.
Yes, sir.
Is the neighbor approving the neighbor who has the view you depicted from the last view you just showed us? Is it the neighbor with that view?
Right, yes. Yes.
All right, anybody else have any questions for the city or for the applicant? In that case, do I hear a motion? Move approval. Mr. Morrison moves to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes unanimously 5-0. Your special exception is granted. Thank you, sir. Item B4 on the agenda this evening relates to 6, 8, and 10 Stocker Drive and Old Windermere. TMS number 42106001112 and 172, zoned SR2, requesting a variance from section 54-824 to allow 3 lots that do not meet the minimum 74-foot frontage requirement on a public right-of-way. Lot frontages for 6 Stocker Drive is 60.8 feet, 8 Stocker Drive is 54.7 feet, and 10 Stocker Drive is 34.3 feet. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow 8 Stocker Drive with a 5.5 foot north side setback, to allow 10 Stocker Drive with a 4.8 foot south side setback, and a 15.7 foot total side setback, 9 feet and 18 feet are required. The owner is Apostle Holdings LLC, Brian Wells. Applicant is Brian Wells. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is a interesting property. It's in Old Windermere, rather. I'm sorry. And it actually consists of what was 2 TMS numbers, now 3 TMS numbers, and 1 house. And the applicant purchased the property, I think, earlier this year. The property contains a residence that was constructed, I think, approximately 1940. So it's a house that fits in with the other homes on Stocker Drive. It's of that era, and it's unfortunately in poor condition. So the applicant's original plans were to demolish the house and then construct 2 new homes on these properties. And those plans met all zoning requirements and received the city's approval, along with a demolition permit for the house, because the city doesn't have any regulations to prevent the demolition of these homes in this area of the city. So that was moving forward, but there was a lot of interest amongst the neighbors and folks in West Ashley to try and save the house and work that into a plan for that would include some new homes too. And so I guess request of Mayor Tecklenburg, The applicant met with the mayor and myself and discussed plans and what it would take for him to go ahead and do that. And he presented a plan that is before you tonight to save the house that's there, but allow for a new addition to that house in the back of the house, and then build 2 new homes on either side. Because of the position of the historic home on this property, one of those new homes will be a little bit narrower, and that's really what's driving the need for these variances tonight. So I'll present the plans, and I think just start off by saying that the applicant has really worked with us and with the neighbors, I think, and come up with a very good proposal. And so I think I'll just start off by saying I've been impressed by his willingness to stop, put the brakes on the plans that he was moving forward with, and reconsider the proposal, come back with a new proposal, new designs for homes, that sort of thing. So I think that's worked very well. But this is the location of the property on Stocker, just west of Wesley Drive. And here's an aerial view, and this does a good job of illustrating that the property is quite large. And originally this was 2.5 lots, 2.5 original lots on Stocker Drive that were purchased together. And that home was constructed not in the center of that combination, but more over to the left side, as you see here. And the home, as I said, it was in the same family for many years. And I believe an elderly lady was living there, and the house just kind of slowly went downhill and has some issues. So the zoning map shows the properties in question. It's this lot, and actually this lot now too. And then the applicant's materials here, their explanation, which was all part of the public posted information online. And information. These are photographs of the existing house. You can see that in the back there's a portion here that's sort of a ruin, and then there were issues back here on this back side of the house, this back corner. This is the front of the house right here. More photographs. This is the plan that the applicant had received approvals for and was moving forward with. This shows the 2 new homes that would be constructed on the property, two lots of record, 2 homes. This is the plan that he came up with as an alternative to save the house. So here is the main house, the existing house. And then we have a new home over here on the left side of the property, or on the left side of the property, left side of the existing house. You can see that it's fairly narrow compared to the other homes on the lot on the street. And the setbacks over here are less than the required setback. So that's where the setback requirements, or rather setback variances, are necessary. And then the other new house over here, larger, more typical of what you find along Stocker Drive. New driveways for these two homes, and then the lot frontages rather for these new lots would be less than the required lot frontages that are necessary in the zoning ordinance. And so that's the other variance that's necessary tonight. And I'll go into those in a little more detail. So on the top, you see the original option for the development of the property. And on the bottom, you see the option that's before you tonight with the existing home in the middle. And then this plat shows the actual lots that would be created with this subdivision and the frontages that are less than the required frontage of 74 feet. And that's the frontage that is developed using the average frontage for the frontages around this property. Certain lots are included in that calculation based on the requirements in the zoning ordinance. You also see there's a large tree back here. That's a tree that will have to come down in order for the addition to be constructed onto the back of the existing house. That request will be before the other Board of Zoning Appeals tomorrow night. So again, here's a blow up of the site plan for the proposed three-home proposal. And this setback over here is the 4.8 foot side setback. And this one right here is the 5.5 foot side setback. Those are less than the 9 foot that's required, but there won't be any impact to the other property owners on either side for these two variance requests. And then there's a total side setback variance request of 15.7 feet for this side setback and the other side setback on the other side of that house. So, and the requirement in this case is 9 feet or 18 feet for this zoning district. So 15.7 is a foot, 1.3 feet less than 2.3 feet less than the required 18-foot side setback. But the side setbacks on this side, neighboring, adjoining that neighboring property owner, are larger than the 9-foot side setback that's required. This is actually 11 feet. And then over here, we've got larger side setbacks as well, almost 11 feet, this back corner. So there's still room on either side of these new homes adjacent to the neighboring property owners. So I think they've come up with a very good plan. I think he even downsized this house a little bit at the request of the neighbor over here. Now, my recommendation is for approval, and I know that the president of the neighborhood association is here tonight, and he will speak as well. There's a letter from him in here as well supporting the request, but with some conditions. And I'll just state what I think the conditions, appropriate conditions, would be to address the concerns about making sure that that house, that existing house, is saved. So my recommendation is for approval because I think that their plan does a very good job of working around the existing house, allowing them to move forward with the development. This was originally 2.5 lots within that neighborhood, and the impacts will be minimal to the adjoining neighbors, and they will be able to benefit from saving the existing houses there. So my recommendation is for approval with the applicant, if the applicant consents to the renovation, or I'm sorry, to the revocation of the demolition permit that was issued by the city on August 24th of this year for 8 Stockton Drive, and agrees to reapply to the city for a demolition permit before any demolition occurs. And what that refers to is the need to do some limited demolition along the back of the existing house. And I'll just read this statement into the record. This is something that I communicated with the applicant on for the meeting. But front portion of the existing house at 8 Stockton will remain. but the applicant will need to remove the existing right rear bump out of the house. And that's approximately a 16.1 foot by 5.7 foot addition. And that's this addition right here that I've highlighted off the back of the house. And the existing left rear concrete bump out of the house. And that's this area that's sort of a ruin right now. The removal of these portions of the house will allow us to build a new addition in the rear of the house. This will leave the front main mass of the house, which is approximately 36.1 feet wide by 22.8 feet deep, as it exists today. And then second condition would be that the applicant agrees to the renovation in addition to the existing main body of the house at 8 Stockard Drive, again with the same understanding that there will be portions highlighted here of that existing house that would be demolished to accommodate the addition that he is proposing and showing on this site plan right here. So those are the two conditions that I would recommend as part of the approval. And then in addition to that, we do have these letters from the neighborhood folks. So Ron Sassard, who is here tonight, is the president of the Old Windermere Neighborhood Association. I'll let him speak. And then we've got a letter from Megan and Forrest Norval, who live next door at 4 Stockard Drive. That's the house to the right of these properties. And states that we have reviewed the proposed site plan for 6810 Stockard Drive, dated September 13th, and reflecting various options. We prefer option 2, which shows 3 separate lots and houses as follows. Existing house at 8 Stockard would remain as to the front facade, but a new rear addition would be constructed, which would require removal of the existing 30-inch live oak in the rear of the property and no more than one tall accessory structure. 1-story tall accessory structure would be built to the rear. 6 Stockard Drive would revert back to its 50-foot width with a new house that meets or exceeds all setback requirements without the need for variance, has an accessory structure that is no more than 1 story tall, has a driveway that is located to the left of the main house, which would minimize the impact of that new driveway on those existing street trees. And then 10 Stockard Drive would be created by creating the property boundary approximately 5 foot 6 inches to the left of the house to remain at 8 Stockard Drive, which are setback variances on the left of the house to remain at 8 Stockard and to the right of the new house to be built at 10 Stockard Drive. So, and then he states our support is due to the in large part to option 2's ability to keep the current front facade of the main house at 8 Stockard Drive. Have 3 houses that are similar in scale. Those other 2-story houses along Stockard Drive. Current owner's confirmation of that the houses on 6 Stockard and 8 Stockard will be constructed on raised slab foundations of no more than 24 inches above the current grade, and current owner's confirmation that the site work at 6 Stockard Drive shall be such that all stormwater from 6 Stockard shall remain on 6 Stockard Drive and be channeled or piped or otherwise sheet flowing directly to the city's stormwater system along Stockard Drive. And then the last letter that we received is from Erin Minigan, the Director of Preservation and Planning at the Preservation Society of Charleston. And she writes that Preservation Society has been closely involved in the conversation surrounding the future of this property. community has voiced strong support for saving the historic building. And we take the loss of historic structures seriously, as the resources are finite, irreplaceable. And goes on to say that therefore we support the community's values for preservation and do not object to the variance request to facilitate redevelopment. A redevelopment plan that retains and incorporates the historic building. However, we urge the board to consider tying conditions to the variance approval that will assure the community the preservation and of the historic building at 8 Stocker Drive. And then the other variance request that's related to these is the frontage request. And those, again, as I mentioned, concern the frontages of each of the lots on Stocker Drive, and they're listed on your agenda. And so we recommend approval of these variances with the conditions, which I'll happily pass over if you'd like to look at those. My thought was that verbal consent from the applicant tonight would be sufficient in this meeting to be on the record as accepting those conditions.
All right, thank you, Lee. Before we hear from anybody opposed or in support of the applicant, what is the current status of the lots? Are there currently 3 lots, or is a subdivision plat to be recorded that shows the further subdivision of the 2 lots into 3?
I believe this started out as 2 lots, and if we go back to this map, that map kind of illustrates that. There's 1 lot here, and then this lot over here. Now, there's been some stuff going through the city approval and review process this year over what to do with these lot lines. I'm not even sure. Maybe the applicant can speak to that.
Okay. All right. And then if I understand correctly, the owner applicant has a demolition permit in hand for 8 Stocker Drive, correct?
That is correct.
And that has been approved by the city. There's nothing that the city can do to prevent the demolition of 8 Stocker Drive. Applicant has worked with the city based upon the community's desire to retain and preserve 8 Stocker Drive, come up with an alternative plan. And the community apparently has voiced some support for that. That's correct. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant at this point in time, because I'm sure that there will be comments from others in the community. And so let's hear from Mr. Wells. Okay. Please identify yourself, state address for the record, please.
You want me to speak into the microphone?
That'd be great. Thank you.
My name is Brian Wells. I am a structural engineer at a firm where we have architectural designers on our firm and also structural engineers. I do the development side is kind of a side business for me, and we do a fair amount of it throughout the city and other municipalities around. Just kind of the history from my perspective. We bought this. We were one of many people that bid on the property. We got the property. Before we bid on it, we researched to make sure that we could demolish the house and just the general size of the lots we knew what we could build out there. And we started the process of the design and the permitting in March. And so we culminated with getting the building permits for the 2 new houses in early August. And then when we pulled the permit for the demolition, that's when the community support of the house really became evident. There was an article in the Post-Courier in late August that kind of talked about the situation, and I had a few mentors and guys that I hadn't heard from in a long time reached out to me, and just kind of my best interest and the best interest of the city, and just say, hey, would you really think about what you're doing here?
So I prayed about it, and I thought about it, and I just felt like the right thing was to try to look at an alternative. This has, as you can imagine, it's cost us a fair amount of money to go through the design process and then stop it and pay the interest and kind of pause to do this, but we feel like this is the right thing to do. Just a few clarification points on some of the things that were in Ron's letter. Just a clarification of the widths of the lots and just kind of the history of the lots. It was originally 2.5 lots when we built it. There was a lot line that had actually had 3 TMS numbers, and one of the first things we did was just separate it back into 2 TMS numbers. We got the approval for those 2 lots in late May to early June, and that was kind of part of the permit process for the first 2 houses we were going to build. When we started the application process for the BZA, in parallel with that, we had this surveyor divided back into the 3 lots, like we would desire for the properties. That new subdivision application went to the survey board, I believe this past Friday, and I think it got approved, and they were basically just holding the approval of that until they got the results of the BZA decision. So that's already been set. In Ron's letter, a few of the widths of the property seemed a little off from what is on the current plan. I was just asked that, the current plan is basically 34 feet for a 10 stalker, 54 feet for 8 stalker, and 60 feet for 6 stalker, which, plus or minus a foot or so, but that's generally what the widths are going to be. There's been a lot of opinions about how high the houses should be off the ground. 24 inches is about where they're going to be with the raised slab height. We're really restricted by the 35-foot overall width, particularly on the right house. So we're going to we'll be within a few inches of 24 inches on the height. As far as 4 stalkers concerns about the drainage, I've been in a lot of discussions with him. I know him personally, and our plan is to burn up along the property line with fences and just make sure that no water gets over there. Anytime we do development project, we have pretty thorough drainage plans with gutters on the houses. There's a good ditch in front of the property, so I don't think drainage is going to be an issue in sight. As far as the rehabilitation of 6 stalker, we're willing to agree to the written comment about saving the house. Saving historical houses is kind of what I do for a living all over different parts of the city. We offer engineer support and architectural support of that, so we know how to do it. The current house is in really bad shape, but we're not intimidated by that. We're trying to tackle that problem. So hopefully that helps. That's kind of a discussion here.
All right, so Mr. Wells, are you agreeable to the conditions as described by Mr. Batchelder, namely number 1, that you would agree that the demolition permit that you have in hand would be revoked and you would have to go and reapply to the city for demolition of the permit of a portion of the rear of the property where you plan to construct an addition?
Yes.
And number 2, that you will rehabilitate, renovate the existing structure there?
Yes.
Do we have anybody else here to speak this evening on the application for 6A in stock? Normally I would hear from the opposition. I'm not sure it's that clear this evening. It may be a little more gray, but if anybody else is here to speak, please go ahead. Thank you, Karen. Please identify your name and address for the record, sir.
My name is Ron Sassard. I'm the president of Old Windermere Neighborhood Association. I've lived in the neighborhood since 2000. As many people in that neighborhood are long-time residents, but we also have a lot of new people coming in as well. This was a very vexing issue for the neighborhood. So to make sure that we really were able to understand and portray the neighborhood's wishes, we actually had a vote of all of the neighbors So we sent out notices and had all the neighbors come in, and that wanted to and vote. And overwhelmingly, the neighborhood was in support or is in support of the option that saves a stalker. With that said, there were some comments that were made that I wanted to capture. And I think two of them may have been already cleared up, but there is some interest in Mr. Wells taking a closer look at that large tree. I think it's a 30-inch tree in the back of the lot. And just, I mean, this is not binding or meant to be, a kill or anything like that, but just to take another look at that and see if there is any way that that tree could be saved. Trees are very important to, I think, the character of the neighborhood and to the city. And so, but we understand if it comes down to the house with a tree, the house is what needs to be saved. Then you addressed the issue about the demolition permit, that would be revoked. And then the last item was to understand the means by which, just in general, what's laid out in Mr. Wells' plans, make sure that's actually what gets, more or less what gets constructed on those 3 lots. And I don't know by what means that, Lee, maybe you can speak with that.
Well, I guess the plans are pretty detailed as to what they're proposing to do, and I don't know if he has any ideas about making any changes to what he submitted for this application, but I would think that he's pretty far along with the design, and I don't expect that.
We'll have a comment on that. So the house on the right and left are pretty much those plans done. So exactly what you see on the footprint location is exactly what you see here. The center one, we've looked at trying to save the tree and try to figure out a way, but we just can't get the square footage that we need for that tree protection to be able to make it work. So we actually have the plans. The architectural plans are done for a stalker, at least 80% done, and we're starting on structural plans. So we're hoping that soon after this, to get the approval that next week we'll do a public for this project.
Does the applicant have to go through any Board of Architectural review for in this area? Okay, not here.
Why is the house on the left set at an angle?
We're trying to do the best we can with the property line, and just we wanted to make that setback from the existing historic house just so it wouldn't be so pronounced on that lot. And we really had that angle based on the left side setback. We're trying to fit a driveway along that side and also maintain about a 10-foot setback along the entire house on the left side.
Are you going to fence between the 2 properties? Like create sort of an odd
I don't know the answer to that. Our plan is to put a fence. There's already a fence on the right side where 4 stalker is. We're planning on putting a fence on the left side where 10 stalker, 12 stalker are, but I don't know between the houses what it would be.
Do you have any rendering that shows all 3 houses together from the street?
Yes, this rendering right here. So this is just the elevations. Is that what you were?
And so on the bottom there, I can't tell if that's 6 or 10 stalker, but that,
This is 10.
and so that is the angled house with the correct perspective of what the angle would look like.
Well, we just kind of put them all as a front perspective because it's part of it was an interest. It was just a time of trying to pull this application together, but that's generally what it's going to look like.
at least from the GIS view, it looks a little odd to be a 1 house that's not oriented parallel with the street front.
Actually, I don't think any of the houses are parallel.
Is that right?
If you look at it real closely, they're all, because Stocker is curving.
No, I mean, sorry, oriented parallel to the street curve,
Right.
or am I?
I think they're all askew a little bit.
Okay.
Tough because if you're trying to do that, you end up getting too close to the lot line.
Okay.
Different sides.
And is the setback of the front a function of the 10 foot on the left, 5 foot on the right? I mean, it's setback behind a good ways from the street relative to the
Again, we did that because we were trying to minimize the mass of that new house on the left side. We were thinking if we put it further back, it would be less noticeable, less obtrusive.
Bassett, I think you may have heard Mr. Batchelder mention that there is another body of Board of Zoning Appeals for tree and landscape issues. And so I assume that this request for removal of the tree meets that board's approval. Is that right? They have to make an application.
They'll have to, they're actually going before that board tomorrow night.
Okay.
So that request will be heard.
Will that board consider the square footage? Like since it's 3,600 square feet, the addition, is that correct? For the back of 8 Stocker, will they consider the square footage in their decision about the tree? Does that make sense? I mean, would they ever
I
ask
know.
that the square footage be less?
They
That's what I'm
could.
trying to ask.
They could. I
In
don't
order
know.
to save the tree.
And we may have other people.
Yes, I want to make sure that anybody who
I
is
did
interested.
have one other.
Yes,
point
sir,
that I wanted to
please.
make. I wanted to make it clear that from the neighborhood, we don't see this as precedent setting in terms of changing the setback. We see this as a unique case because we're trying to save this older home. And also, because of the familiarity of the home and just that we know that it fits the character of the neighborhood, that was very important. But we want to make sure and hear from this board to make sure that that we're not creating a situation where this becomes precedent setting in terms of other people coming to the board and requesting variances on the setback, because our neighborhood, like a lot of neighborhoods in Charleston, are under pressure for development, and there are open lots and one other abandoned house in the neighborhood that we want to make sure that each case would be treated individually and not be able to use this as a precedent.
I would say to that each application stands on its own merit. The rules are what the rules are, and therefore if somebody wants to come in with a proposal or an application for a variance that is not in conformity with the rules, then they have to make an application. They have to show what the ordinance requires. And so this is a situation. This is a situation here where I applaud the community and the developer for working together towards a solution. It may not be the perfect solution, but is there a perfect solution? I don't know. I do want to make sure that anyone else who is here to speak on this issue has an opportunity. So
Certainly, I do want to thank Mr. Wells for working with us to save 8 Stocker. That was very important to the neighborhood. And to thank this board as well for the important work you guys do to help protect the character.
thank you. I did have one question for you before you said that. Does the neighborhood association have any architectural review, or is it too old?
No, we are actually talking with the city about should we have some kind of character protection for our neighborhood. Nothing outside of the city itself has any kind of review process for either demolition, as my understanding, for either demolition or new construction additions. So I think it's an important thing to look at, but as we do it, we'll do it as a, with the neighborhood at large, to make sure everybody's on board with where we're doing that.
And it sounds like your community is particularly interested in preserving the character that we have there now. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sasser. Anybody else have anything to comment on this application?
Hi, my name is Ashton Finley, and I'm a neighbor in South Windermere, and also a preservationist. I've been teaching historic preservation at the College of Charleston for almost 6 years. And this is as remarkable a preservation story as I can remember, really. The community, the neighborhood, and all sorts of interested parties in West Ashley and the city coming together to come up with a solution to save this really important historic home. We do think it dates to 1940. We've had Donna Jacobs helping us with our research and other preservation professionals helping us. And it is in sorry shape, but the character of this house is really remarkable. It has beautiful historic materials. The rhythm that I think that this solution, this option 2 preserves in the streetscape is incredibly important. Part of the magic of Old Windermere is this rhythm of the homes and how they relate to the streetscape and to the grand oaks in the front. And I think when you're looking at the street on Stalker, going from historic home at 12, new home at 10, historic home at 8, new home at 6, historic home at 4, and then historic homes across the street, I think these 2 new homes at 6 and 10 will blend so much better than 2 big homes, new homes, that I think will look sort of like that missing gap tooth effect in the rhythm of the street. Mr. Wells has had this demolition permit for a few months now, and he didn't have to take my phone call when I begged him to save Kate Stalker. He didn't have to take anyone's phone call from the city, and he did. He answered the phone every time, and was really respectful of how passionate we felt about this house, and he didn't have to be. He could have demolished it that next day. I drove that neighborhood every day for a while. I'm convinced I would see the demolition crews outside that house. So I just think this has really been an extraordinary effort on the community's part and Mr. Wells' part, and even from the city as well. And I just wanted to give a bit of backstory on that story, and also why 8 Stalker is so important. It seems like this old abandoned house here, but it is really important to the neighborhood. In fact, I think this is step 1, is saving 8 Stalker. Step 2 is I really believe Old Windermere deserves and will be the next historic district in the city of Charleston. I believe that, and certainly the National Landmark District too. I think those are in the works, and we'll see that. But I think that saving 8 is an important part of that next step in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finley. Yes, please. Please state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tasha Durley with Historic Charleston Foundation. On behalf of the foundation, we would like to commend the applicant for his willingness to go back to the drawing table, develop a new plan to save the existing historic building at 8 Stalker. We'd also like to commend the neighborhood, the Old Windermere Neighborhood Association, and the surrounding community members for their advocacy and diligence through this process. The City of Charleston's preservation plan proposed a Charleston vision that set forth a long-term direction for future planning. And that plan pays a particular focus on historic resources located west of the Ashley, with an emphasis on West Ashley's historic neighborhoods and the need to conserve them. So we're really encouraged to see that the developer and the community came together with a plan to protect 8 Stalker from demolition while simultaneously paying a nod to the city's preservation plan. And we look forward to working with the neighborhood on additional conservation efforts. But consequently, HCF is in support of the lot frontage and setback variance applications with conditions that would take wholesale demolition off the table, Mr. Batchelder's conditions. And importantly, option 2 would preserve and rehabilitate that existing house, which is critical to the architectural integrity of the neighborhood. Yet it will also be adding to the housing stock, which we all know is critically needed in our city. We find that option 2 respects the rhythm of the street and the development pattern of Old Windermere and is consistent with the scale and context of the neighborhood. And respectfully, we would urge board members to approve the application with the conditions laid out by Mr. Batchelder. Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on 6, 8, and 10 Stocker Drive? All right, we do have a letter, I think, of support from the Preservation Society as well.
That's correct. Yes.
All right, I want to give the applicant a chance to address any additional issues that have been raised.
Yeah, the only thing, when she was looking, it's kind of unclear, but the 8 Stocker, the 3,600 square feet, that is not the addition portion of it, that's going to be the total square footage of the house.
Thanks.
All right, we'll close the public hearing portion. We'll I'll ask the board members if you have any questions for the city or for the applicant or for the Property Owners Association.
I wanted to ask about the letter from the adjacent neighbor that had some conditions. Were those things that we need to consider including in our conditions or the ones that you established?
I think just as a point of clarification, I've had a lot of written communication with Forrest Morgan, he's an attorney that does real estate stuff. He's made it very clear in his emails about what he expects on the drainage thing, and we've got enough written agreements between the two of us that I'm going to honor those agreements. But I just want to add that to the discussion. Sorry.
Plus, I understand from Matt Mountain that some type of city regulations were passed in 2020 about flood water from on the adjacent property. So I think he was explaining that that's been codified.
All right, so if we look at the neighbors' comments, the first one is, I believe, issues that we've already discussed. Existing home would remain on the side. The rear addition would be constructed. My note may need to be removed from the decision tomorrow. No more recall accessory structures will be built in the rear. I'll ask Mr. Wells, do you plan on building more than a one-story tall accessory structure?
No, it's just one that we've worked on.
It would revert back, 6 Stocker would revert back to its 50-foot width shown in the width shown in.
6 Stocker will have a width of 60 feet.
More than that, I don't know if that.
Street frontage, or is that
That's
the facade?
Well,
Or I should say, is the question referring to the house or to the property line?
which one is that?
That's the second bullet point item in the letter from the Norvells.
Would that have been the original property line prior to?
I know, we're pretty much matched the original property line on the new plan, so. That 60-foot, 10 inches is the same as what was. Problem is if we move it to 50 feet, then we don't have enough room for a driveway on that property.
Right. Currently proposed to be 60, so that's more than one.
Don't happen to have the Norvells here, do we?
No, he was unable.
And it looks like the applicants addressed the other issues in the last paragraph. In regards to the 24 inches, and then he just talked about the stormwater.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this board can really enforce stormwater regulations, so we'll have to defer those to another department. That's right, correct.
Matt Fountain, who Mr. Sasser referred to as the director of the stormwater department. So
I would offer just a quick comment before I proceed with the motion, but I would applaud the applicant for listening to the community. I think it's a fabulous success for preservation, and I think this is a great alternative to what was previously suggested. On that basis, I'm going to move for approval.
Sure.
So as it relates to value, anytime historic preservation is done in a community, appraisers look at that as an asset. We look at it as a plus. If we see historic preservation done, that means the next street that might look a little bad may not be that bad because the neighborhood cares about what's going to happen. So I would commend you as well, but I would also add, tell your story. Don't hide from the story of how this became a success, because it's going to give energy for the next success in your community or somebody else's community. So what might be the worst house on the street today could be pride of the neighborhood story tomorrow. So just wanted to commend that and say that it is value added. And certainly, I think it's a great idea. So
I move for approval with conditions outlined by Mr. Batchelder.
Yes, that's fine. What I'll intend to do then is I will attach that piece of paper to the decision. So we have a motion to approve with conditions as outlined. Do I hear a second?
Both variances simultaneously.
Yes, we will move to approve both variances with the conditions, and I will paraphrase those conditions. The demolition permit existing will be revoked. A new demolition permit for a portion of the existing building in the rear will be applied for, and the existing structure at 8 Stocker Drive will be preserved and renovated. Now, specific conditions get into a little bit more detail, but those are the conditions as I understand them, and that's part of the motion. So do I hear a second to that motion? Mr. Morrison, the second is the motion to approve with conditions. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. 5-0, the motion passes. The variances are granted under conditions which you agreed to here this evening. So thank you. I again commend and applaud you all for working together to do some good for the community. Thank you. This is, if every application, if the community and the applicant could work together to have a solution, it would make our lives much easier. So thank you. And with that, that's the last item on our agenda. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Do you happen to know, I'm just curious, I see this stuff.
I felt bad about missing it, and I
think it was.
quick this meeting within tonight.
Yeah, I knew it was Barbara Mead's house, okay.
Because,
I know all about this house. I know more than you want to hear.
I'm your neighbor, Jamaica. Right behind you.
Barbara, you came.